Have you ever felt like you're maybe getting up there in age, or you're potentially within range of becoming obsolete? If that's something that you are experiencing or have experienced, then let me tell you, you're at the right place, because today's episode, we're gonna dig in a little deeper. We're gonna talk about things that I've experienced, and maybe it'll help you out. So stay right here. Well, thanks for coming back. Today, I've got something useful that I want to share with you. Okay, it's something that I found recently and purchased off of Amazon. It's camouflage, so it's tough. It looks like a gun. It comes with multiple different attachments as well, but just keep this long guy on there. But essentially, what it is it's a battery-powered, rechargeable blower. You know how we spend a bunch of money on that canned air stuff to clean up the computer, dust off the shelves, whatever, or cool yourself down. You're sweaty after setting up for a podcast shoot like this one, and you need to cool yourself down. Well, this little gadget here is on Amazon, and I'm going to go ahead and drop the affiliate link in the description in case you're interested. But you just hold that button down, get it going. Oh yeah. And it's got multiple speeds. Trust me, it's powerful. It may need a little bit of a charge, but dust is no match for that little guy. So if you want to, save the environment, prevent the mishap of your child getting a hold of that canned air and for some reason huffing it and becoming addicted and going on some kind of crazy rampage, then that's what you want to get. So, I find things that help me out with work or otherwise. I'm going to go ahead and share them, okay? Because a coworker of mine, he mentioned canned air the other day, and I brought it up and told him how much I enjoyed this. He was looking at multiple different models on Amazon, and he was curious about which one I went with, and so I sent him the link. He bought it right away, and hopefully he likes it. So we'll see. But it's enough about that. That's enough about that. Like I said, in this episode, I wanted to get real, okay? It's December 1st. We're knocking on 2024, if you can believe it. Christmas will be here, the holidays, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all the good stuff. And it's time to get reflective, right? I mean, the sun is rarely out, so, we're dealing with snow and cold. And maybe it's that, maybe it's something else, but yeah, I've been reflective. I don't know about you. Do you ever go through these times where you're like, you turn around and you notice that all of your peers are like 10 years younger than you, or 20 in some crazy cases, and you think, what happened? I remember my first legit design job, and man, I would have done it for free. Don't tell them that. I needed to provide for a small family at the time, but it was that awesome to go from blue collar manual labor to just working in front of a beautiful Mac computer and being in Photoshop or Flash at the time or Illustrator, whatever. It just it was amazing, and I'm like, am I seriously doing this, getting paid for it? And just prior to that, I had ventured off on my own, after dropping out of college because of juggling too many things, got in a car accident. It's a whole thing. But and I knew I didn't want to be doing the the blue collar thing forever. I wanted to be able to leverage my God-given skillage, okay? Something that I thought I had at the time, and maybe I did in some areas, but certainly weak in the design department. I could draw, that was about it. But long story short, so yeah, failed attempt at freelancing. First real design job at a legit studio, 20-person team or so. And I was just like, wow, I don't have to be the one knocking down people's doors for, accounts receivable or to drum up new business. I didn't even know what in the heck I was doing. I was, I've talked about it before on this program, but just lost with, what to do. This was prior to this design job. So learned a ton there about the business of design. And long story short, I remember telling people, my wife, anyone who would listen, they would talk about retirement or whatever. And put money into your 401k, save that up because you're gonna want to retire at 65 or whatever. And I thought, are you kidding me? I'm gonna do this forever. I might stay at this same studio forever. Just keep on sending me those tasks. I'll get them done. Maybe we'll design something cool here and there, but I'm able to sit down, be in front of a computer, walk, grab myself a beverage, whatever. Speaking of that, it's time to wet the whistle. Oh yeah, seltzer water. Kroger. They do it right. Yeah. So, anyways, that was my thought. I was young, 25, and thought that I was going to always not only feel well enough and fulfilled and all that to just keep on doing, an entry designer's work. And, I imagined I would climb the design creative ladder, whatever you want to call it. But as time has gone on, I've started to realize that the reality is, like it or not, call it ageism or whatever, but us oldies, we got a shelf life. Yeah. I'm at a loss here. I don't want it to be true. I think there's definitely value that we can bring as we age, and there's different tiers. There are things that only experience can provide, all those things, but it's not a given is what I'm trying to say. And so rather than have all my eggs in one basket, in my employer's basket, essentially, I'm at their, their whim. No, that's not the term. I'm at their disposal. Yeah, their disposal. I mean, think about that. That's what happens, especially in the current market where, you see a design job pop up and boom, 700 applicants. You go back a year and a half, 2 years ago, and there would be like maybe 40 or 100 if it was a really big job. But people were in demand in the tech space and in the creative field. You wouldn't be too off base if you thought that it would always be like that. At least that was the thinking. But here we are. It's a tighter market. Layoffs abound. Uncertainty is on the horizon. There's so many different variables that play into it, right? With the world. I could get political, but we're not gonna, okay? Because that's not the kind of show we're running here, all right? So suffice to say, you're gonna diversify your eggs, right? rather than having all those eggs in the employer basket, you want to work harder on yourself than you do your job. Now, I'm not saying it's time to just coast and do the bare minimum or, quiet quit or whatever, I mean, there's ethics involved here. You're getting paid. You want to provide value. And that means, putting 100% of yourself into it while you're on the clock. And, I've always got, part of my brain working, like when I'm consuming media or seeing things out there in the world, like how can I leverage this for my day job? And not to mention my side hustle or whatever. And so, yeah, that is kind of where I'm at. Is like, no, you're not going to be able to work forever for an employer and just assume that because you're able to use a computer or you can execute certain commands and maybe you've stayed up to date to a certain degree, doesn't mean the employer is going to want to keep you around. That business may not be around. They may sell it. They may go under. They, new ownership changes hands from one generation to the other, whatever. And they're like, we need fresh blood in here. We're not going to call it that because that would be, not politically correct, but we're going to help you gracefully be set off into greener pastures, if you will, right? And so that is the reality of what I'm dealing with. Does that mean that I'm going to consign myself to this inevitable path and just allow it to happen and hope that things work out well enough? No. I don't want to leave my future, my family's future, to chance. And so that is where the subject of today's podcast comes into play with regards to, doing your own thing. Because if you're your own boss, well, then it's up to you whether or not you keep yourself on as a creative or what it is you want to do, or you are able to hire younger creatives and sit back from a place of mentorship or whatever, right? Be the boss. But like I kind of alluded to, tain't easy, right? You go back to the year 2004, 2005 when I was doing my freelance thing straight out of blue collar land and crashed and burned, and just a few little things, if I would have known them, would have made all the difference, and I've hit on these before and I'll hit on them again because they're that important. For one, scoping projects, just knowing how to set those expectations for your client. It's huge. And knowing how to communicate, what's included. If you're creating a brochure, are the stock photos included? Have you worked that into the price? Or is that an upcharge? And how many are included? Because if you're having to fork out on the low end $10-20 a piece, or on the high end $500-600 a piece, then you better for darn sure make sure and your client knows, more importantly, what is or what is not included. Okay, so that's the thing that really bit me hard. And then just standard business practices in general, not that you need an MBA for it, but just the fact that barely paying your bills or going month to month and skirting by is not the definition of a successful business, a business that's going to be there tomorrow, a year from now, whatever. So you got to bake in those margins, those profits, so that you're always growing. You're putting money away. You're able to invest in equipment, in talent, whatever. Just have that nest egg there for your business, so that, as always seems to happen, when you hit a lean month or quarter or whatever, you'll have that money to lean on, and you'll have a set list of things that you can do to help keep circulating the leads and keeping that biz dev going. Okay, so that's kind of a primer. But to bring a little bit of structure to this, I'm going to invoke the knowledge of a true expert in the field of marketing and creative and professional services in general, Mr. Seth Godin. And I wish I could say, hey, Seth, hop on the mic, welcome as a guest. He's not. But I have read a couple of his books, a few of his books, and my favorite is called The Practice, Shipping Creative Work. So I've read it once all the way through. I've referred to it multiple times. I'm always super energized and excited about the future when I consume the knowledge that is there in. And I think a while back I did an episode on the same book from this podcast, so check that out. And essentially that was me pulling a couple of nuggets randomly from the book as I went through it the first time, and just shared kind of my thoughts on those. But this time I'm invoking you might call it dark arts of the AI to help me out. So I told Mr. ChatGPT, hey, you're an expert in all things Seth Godin, blah blah blah, his book, Shipping Creative Work, The Practice, whatever. From this perspective, from someone who is looking to start their own practice, their own freelance business, one-man show, or something bigger, with that lens, Mr. ChatGPT, what would you say are the top 10 most important steps, essentially, or learnings from that? And so that is what I have to share. So, obviously, if you have access to ChatGPT, you can do that yourself. You can just kind of say, hey, I don't need this. I'm checking out. I'm going to do this myself. But I will warn you, you won't get the pleasure of hearing what I have to say about it, right? Since, I'm sure that's what you're looking for. So here it is. Number 1, start before you're ready. Whew, man, don't wait for the perfect moment or feel you need to know everything. Starting is the most crucial step, according to ChatGPT, based on what is written in that book. And I remember that really, slapped me in the face, because when you're looking to make a change, from what you might perceive as security at a day job, you're getting a steady paycheck, you're collecting medical benefits, you got other bennies, as the kids call them. That's hard to step away. You got a family to feed. You're like, if I'm going to do this, it better be turnkey, ready, everything dialed in for the next 5 years, guaranteed money before I do this. And for the love, this is up to each individual personally. You do you, and you make sure that whatever you decide to do, you've done the research, you feel confident, you have a game plan. But no matter where you're at, there's going to be something else you could have done. There's going to be something more. It's super easy to talk ourselves out of like not taking that step and thinking that by not making this decision to move on, that we're playing it safe. But you making that decision to stay where you're at, and you've been there for 6 years or whatever, that, my friends, is a decision. And it may be the riskier decision. Okay? Current market as my proof point. Okay? Number 2, we're moving right along. Consistency is key. All right. Consistent. Got to be consistent. Create and deliver work regularly. This builds discipline, improves skills, and establishes your reputation. And I would say consistency is not just about, posting regularly on social media or consistently delivering on what you say you're going to do. All super important things, but I'd also say that it has to do with just every aspect of pulling yourself up out of bed consistently at a good time. Because if you take that step into the unknown of self-employment, freelance town 2024 or whatever, then it's going to be easy to be like, hey, it's cool. I can sleep in. I can have an extended weekend and make it, 2 weeks long, and I'll get to that when I get to it. I've got a buffer, whatever. No, you gotta be consistent with your schedule. You're producing things. Now, you may decide that, hey, you do your best work from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. I don't know if I recommend that, especially if you're going to have some type of customer-facing relations with clients and whatnot. But hey, if that works, you do you. Make that work. But consistency. So that's number 2. Number 3, focus on process, not outcome. Concentrate on your work method rather than observing or obsessing over the success of each project. Consistent process leads to consistent outcomes. Yeah? Okay. So, rather than beating ourselves up because our latest video or post didn't get the number of likes or views that we hoped it would, or our marketing campaign or ad spend didn't, result in millions of dollars of business overnight, if we're going to beat ourselves up over that and say, hey, you're stupid, you're not doing this right, who do you think you are? That's a slippery slope, my friends. And a lot of times there's just little changes that we can make. We can dial in. We can be like, okay, how can I make this process a little more smooth? How can I circumvent or mitigate potential red flags or objections from the client? You're presenting multiple logo concepts, and rather than just sharing a page of 8 marks and saying, hey, pick which one you like best with no context, separate those bad boys out one at a time, maybe show them in different scenarios, and or write a description, a kind of designer's perspective little note that's like, here's this mark or logo, and I am using shapes that evoke this feeling, and I chose this element or that because I know that it'll speak to this audience that you said, and that's essentially my rationale on why I'm presenting this. And then all of a sudden that prospect, that brand, that client can see that, oh wow, this isn't just some random shape that looks cool or doesn't. There's some meaning behind it, or there's some intention in why the designer decided to go that way. So that's just one example. There's obviously process is in everything we do, and we can constantly be improving that. And I think, to me, what's equally as important is that second part, the not focusing on the outcome, because you're going to be anxious, you're going to be hypercritical in general when you're on your own, when you're the boss, when you're taking on this big thing. And if you can get yourself to get out of your own head and focus on the process, trusting the process, it's going to be huge. Number 4, seek feedback, not reassurance. Constructive criticism helps you grow. Reassurance only comforts, but doesn't contribute to improvement. So that's great. And it's not easy, especially in this day and age where we're all about tolerance and not hurting anybody's feelings and not even having to pick up the phone. We can just text. We don't have to see people. We've been through a pandemic, where we've been remote and hands off, and we just are able to totally almost remove any friction out of our life, We're not having to go to work in a lot of cases. And yeah, we're getting off the subject. But essentially, what I'm trying to say is, we don't like confrontation or contention. And that's what feedback can be sometimes. But that's what's important. That's what's going to actually make you better. Not just getting someone to say, hey, what do you think of this? Pretty cool, right? And then they're just going to say, yeah, great, good job. Rather than, asking open-ended questions like, what don't you like about this? Or how can I improve this? That's number 4. Now, number 5, Cinco de Five-O, embrace failure as learning. So that goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about. Number 4, every time we get that kind of hurtful feedback, that radical candor, whatever, that gives us an opportunity to admit that, hey, we're not perfect. There is room for improvement. I'm going to accept this failure in my, process or personality or skills or whatever, and I'm going to make it better. Every setback, it says, is a step towards mastery. Learn from failures rather than fearing them. You know what? If you haven't done it in a little while, here we are halfway through, go ahead and get yourself a cold, sparkling water, seltzer water, 0 calories, 0 flavoring, just that tasty, hard sparkle. And when I say hard, I'm not talking alcohol. I'm talking cold, hard tastiness. Feel the burn. I love it. Here we go. Number 6. Ship it. Don't get bogged down in perfectionism. Number 6 says you got to ship it. Complete your projects and put them out there. Done is better than perfect. Love it. So the act of just getting something out the door, bringing something to completion, is so critical to what we do. I'm guilty of it. I think it's human nature to get an idea, that initial 50%, even 90% is fun and exciting. And then you start to hit up against some resistance. It gets hard. You realize that here I am at a point where it's not fun anymore because I'm, if you're working on a drawing and you're trying to make it realistic you've had fun kind of capturing the likeness of a person or a place or a thing or whatever. You've captured the general idea or essence of what it is you're doing. But then when it comes to the actual execution, the rendering, it can take an hour to cover a square inch of this, 1,000 square inch canvas that you have or whatever. So it can be extremely tedious. I'm working on a project right now where I bit off a little more than maybe I could chew. It's trying to create several blocks of Manhattan buildings, textured. It's a night scene. It's in the background, and then you're inside of a posh event space in a hotel or something. And I want it to look realistic because I want it to, feature an executive from someone at MX who can stand in this virtual environment and have it feel real, and while it looks cool and there's a lot of promise, it's starting to get hard and slow, and you realize that it's not looking real yet, because it's obvious that there are some details that are missing. And if any of y'all have worked in 3D or anything, it's not sure what takes longer, try to make something look real in 2D and in some airbrushed oil painting acrylic piece, or a 3D scene that's fully fleshed out with textures and just the right fidelity of models and everything. So done is better than perfect, and it is extremely easy to get bogged down in perfectionism. And there are some things that do require a certain level of perfection, because it's either looks real or it doesn't. The depth of field bokeh can only take you so far. So we'll update you on that. But number 6, ship that junk. Number 7, trust your voice. Your unique perspective and style are your strengths. Trust in your creative voice and let it shine in your work. Now, I've heard several people say that if everyone likes your work, then you're not pushing it hard enough. Real art is polarizing. There's going to be some that absolutely love it and are just over the moon, crazy psycho over it, and then there's going to be others that are just hate it. I look at some of the current design trends, which are a resurrection of past design trends from the 90s, and that was probably something that started in the 70s or 60s even, but it's this look it up, it's brutalism art style, where it's like intentionally bad and jarring, and the colors are not harmonious, the graphics are intentionally low res, or elements are cut out, but it does convey some sense of kind of disorder and irreverence and grunge and excitement and stick it to the man type of an attitude. So case in point, if you've checked your Spotify lately, here it is the end of the year, and you've got your Spotify Wrapped or whatever, and it's a little video that takes you through. That's an example of brutalism design, where You'll see what I'm talking about, but it's just these crazy colors. But guess what? It's the trend. It's a trend. Let's just say it doesn't come natural for me to produce that kind of work, but I do appreciate it more than I ever have before because there is some intention there. So, and that was just one example, but if that's what everyone's doing, right, then that's not your unique voice. So what is it that makes you different? How can you take your vision of the world or how you see things and put it out there, ship it, and expect and hope that others will see it as well? And so that's a real way to differentiate. We can say niche down, however, I think niche is what the kids are saying. And you might think, oh, that just means I got to pick one thing. But really, according to Gary Vee, and I agree with him, is that your niche is you. If you are a poetry-loving, ballet enthusiast, monster truck loving snowboarder who happens to like to draw with crayons, you pull that all together somehow, and that's your lens on the world, and that's how you see things. Share that unique perspective with your audience, and there's going to be another group of monster truck balleters, whatever you want to call them, that are going to dig that as well. We're just cruising right along. We got number 8. According to Seth Godin, abridged by ChatGPT, for you're looking to go out on your own and start your own practice. So number 8 is generosity in your work. Create with the intention to add value and make a difference. This mindset often leads to more fulfilling and impactful work. Yeah, I can hear that. How can you tell your story or help a cause or, really look to move a medium forward? We've been in the web world for decades now, and we're entering a new chapter of mixed reality with Apple's new headset coming out and the Oculus, no, it's not Oculus, Meta Quest 3, pass-through action and what have you. How can you really push the boundaries? What are those experiences that not everyone else is thinking about, but you're being generous and you're taking the time to do it. That's my perspective. You tell me where I'm wrong here. This is just one dude's opinion. Number nine, one away from the last one. Practice empathy. Understanding your client's needs and perspectives is crucial in delivering work that resonates and satisfies. So one way you might look at that is, even though I've got my own voice and I'm trying to maybe apply my style or impose, might be a better way of saying it, impose my style on my client's project, unless that is a brand fit, then maybe you're not being empathetic to the audience, to the needs of the brand. You're more concerned with just being able to create something that you're going to have fun with and you want to put in your portfolio. Now, that's not to say that that's bad, but it all comes down to kind of what I talked about in the beginning, stuff that isn't on this list here, with regards to setting those expectations, ensuring that the client knows that, hey, you're engaging with me, this is the style I work in, these are the types of brands that usually mesh the best and where my work is going to be a good fit. Otherwise, if you're, interested in playing the role of the chameleon, which is another early episode of the podcast. Check that out, where you've learned the skills of appreciating different design styles and being able to emulate those, or not just straight rip it off, but say, okay, I'm going to leverage something that is more feminine, that isn't necessarily what I normally do, but for one reason or the other, they came to me, a dude, and I'm going to get in touch with my feminine side so I can do this, but I'm also going to, care about it enough to really understand that audience and what makes them tick. I'm not just going to rely on my perspective of it. I'm going to get in there and understand from the client or user research or looking at competitors, what are the things that are working or not working, and producing something that is empathetic to the brand, to the audience, so on and so forth. Finally, number 10 on this list is continuous learning. Stay curious and keep learning. Trends, tools, and techniques in graphic design are always evolving. And I love this. I love it. We all kind of at different times and find a design style, illustration style, an aesthetic, if I can say that word correctly, that we just really like or resonate with. And it's easy to just be like, yeah, that's the go-to solution for this problem. I've done it before, I'll do it again. I'm going to phone it in, and I'm going to apply this design approach, essentially, that worked for this other website or this other logo or this other motion design piece or whatever. No. You need to be continuously learning, and that doesn't just mean reading books and going to more schooling. All those things are great and everything, but it means being ferocious consumer, being absolutely passionate about everything, that is even remotely tied to design. And that's pretty much everything. And like I've stressed in the past, if you want to be a better designer, a better illustrator, motionographer, motion designer, whatever the terms are that they're using these days, and you're just looking at what has been done or what's currently being done, then chances are you're going to kind of be a copycat. Sure, you might take some from one thing and some from another and mesh it together, and that's definitely a step in the right direction. But if you can take something that has nothing to do with typography or motion graphics or animation and use that to inform what it is you're doing. It's like, say I'm designing a vehicle, I could go look at other vehicles and find the ones that I think are the most awesomest, right? And I'm going to take headlights inspired from this. I'm going to take the lines in the body inspired from this. Or you could go look at freaking insects or nature, So yeah, you're going to pull in your experience from something else, Maybe you've done an extensive amount of traveling, or you happen to be a student of biology, whatever. Take those hobbies that aren't necessarily design related and apply them to what you're doing and create something new. And so that, my friends, my friend, I'm talking to you because you tuned into this. You've listened to the whole thing. You needed to hear this for one reason or another. It can't just be me. Go out there, figure out what it is you want to do. Be realistic about the future, realistic about the fact that if you're not making a choice, you're still making a choice. If you're someone who says, I'm a yes man, I'm not going to say no, I'm going to say yes to this, I'm going to say yes to that, guess what? For everything you're saying yes to, you're saying no to something else. It's just how it is, because like it or not, we can only do one thing at a time. And if we're doing this thing, we're not doing a million other things, right? Again, thank you for joining me on another episode of a little program that I affectionately call Create or Die. So until next time, my friends, keep on creating. And I'll say it again. Create or die.